Today we're going to look at making a web page and discovering what HTML is. But we should start at the beginning. So web pages are structured and made of a thing called HTML. So I'm looking at a web page now, it happens to be glitch.com, which is something we're going to use in a minute. And this website is made from HTML, at least its core structure is HTML. Now HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's a language, it's a web language. That's the first thing we need to know. And it's called Hypertext, which is, there's some great history to it all. So if you're interested in the history, look up Hypertext, look up Tim Berners-Lee, who created a lot of the kind of core things that the modern internet is built with. That's pretty interesting. Hypertext markup language is a load of stuff that makes your web page. Now in that stuff is some specific things that you kind of have to start learning to make a web page. But what I think scares a lot of people off web stuff or programming is perhaps the thought that they need to memorize a new language or somehow learn a language like they're learning to speak a different language. And it's very, very different. You really don't have to memorize stuff. You really don't have to kind of study it for years. So much of it is available to copy paste or modify or borrow or kind of discover on the internet itself. So you're looking at the very thing it's made from. It's full of information, full of some great ways of doing it. So first of all, you don't need any special tools. You don't need to download a bit of software to make websites. You can do everything online. Eventually, when you come to do more professional things, if you're building websites commercially, you will want to download tools. We can have a look at that as well. But to start off with, there's quite a few online tools you can use, and I'm showing you one now called glitch.com, which I think is a really great all-round tool to make websites with. So let's just dive in and I'll show you how I might start. So if you go to glitch.com, you can make yourself an account, which I've already done. And then if you open up the menu, I'm in the kind of mobile view here because it's a bit easier. There's a button up here when you're on a desktop. You can go to New Project, and I'm just going to use one of its pre-made examples. And there's three things here. I'm going to go Hello Web Page. There are loads of templates you can use. This is one of the pre-built ones. And when you make a new project, it starts off by loading it. It gives it a random name here. So you can see it's called itself Navy Exuberant Peridot, which is good fun. And it's loading my project up. This will take a couple of minutes. So here we go, we're ready now. We've got some files and stuff on this side. We've got a little thing here that says welcome to Glitch, which is interesting. So it's, it's a little tutorial here. Tells me a bit about the project. And then there's some buttons up here. So let's just have a quick look. So there's a thing called show. That looks quite tempting. Let's have a little look. So I click on show and let's say show in new window. And you can see my URL up here. Well, maybe that's not in view, but my URL is navyexuberantperidot.glitch.me, and that's something I can send to other people. So you can see a web page. Hi there, I'm your cool new web page made with Glitch. Great. So that's the website I've just created, and we can have a look at how we might edit that and tinker with it. And there's a little menu here, and that menu's got some options. I can embed it and view source. Now this is actually on the web page I just created, so we can have a look at why all this is happening and what we can do now. So let's go back to Glitch. So I've selected this file, or it came pre-selected, the one called readme.md. Now when you look at things on the internet, especially open source things, and open source is free software or free code you can use, and it's quite a tradition to come with a little README file. It's called README because they want you to read it, and it's .md. So MD is a markdown file. Now these files are things that when you make a web page or when you make a bit of software, the public don't see this. It's for you, it's for the coders, and it's for the coder who might come after you to sort of help about it. But so it's just a little helpful file that's telling you what is in here. And so if you look through this, this is it. This is the file that you can tell people what your website does and how you built it. So it's for those future programmers who might look at it. Now, index HTML is the thing we're going to talk most about here. when you make a web page, let's say you go to google.com, you don't go to google.com/search.html. It automatically goes to a page. You just see the google.com bit. You don't have to type anything after. Now that's because it's loaded an index file. Now there's loads of languages out there you can look at the internet on. HTML is just one of them. It's kind of the core one. But basically, when you go to a website domain, it will automatically load a file called index.html. And if you're in a folder and you put something called index.html in that, so if you went to yourwebsite.com/portfolio, if you put a file called index.html in there, it'll automatically load that. And that's really helpful because it means I don't have to go to me.com/portfolio/portfolio.html. You can just use the very simple me.com/portfolio and it will load this file. So you'll see a lot of index.html. And if you start working with some other languages, you might see index.php or index.something else. This is really common. Now, there's two other files in here. We've got style CSS and script.js. Now, HTML is the language that kind of forms the structure of a website. It's where you put content in, so the text or maybe images or other stuff as well. CSS is another language and it's for styling. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Now, that's again another strange name. Why are they cascading? Let's ignore the cascading bit. It's to do with the order that things get loaded and the way things get shown on a web page. We don't really need to worry about the cascading bit. It's a lovely name. Style sheet kind of stands for itself. It's a style and it's a sheet. So it actually comes from sort of pre-internet days. You actually have style sheets in more traditional media, but it is the style of your website. It's a single file, and it can be multiple files that might say, well, this text needs to be blue, and that image needs to stretch all the way across the screen, and this list is actually going to be a drop-down menu. So it needs to hide away. And when I click on it, something needs to happen. And you can even do that kind of thing in CSS, make things click and change. But the interaction stuff is often done through another language called JavaScript. And further down here, you've got script.js. So you can add JavaScript to a website. Now I have to note, you don't need any CSS or any JavaScript on a website. It's just the extra flavor and the spice that makes your website interesting. And JavaScript's particularly that spicy flavor thing. So it might be drop down menus, or it might be interaction, or it might be animation. JavaScript does all the really funky stuff. So if you want to think about what these things are, the HTML is where you got the content, and it's where you got some sort of primary structure. It's also where you might label what things are. So saying this is an image, this is a paragraph, this is a button, this is a heading, this is a label, that sort of thing. You do that in the HTML. So it's got the content and also got the kind of idea of the type of the content, what kind of thing it is. CSS is where you have the look and feel. So it might be colors, it might be sizing, it might be fonts, it might be doing a lot of stuff that makes the whole thing feel a certain way. So maybe the website feels more like a mobile website in a certain size, and it feels more like a desktop site in another size. You can do all that kind of stuff with your CSS too. And JavaScript's used particularly where you need some sort of interactivity or decision making. So logic, if this is doing this, then do that. Otherwise, you might do this. That kind of thing, where you actually need to sort of make logical decisions, or you might want to have a really complicated, beautiful animation. All that kind of stuff can be done with JavaScript. And finally here it's got assets. Now they've got a folder here called assets, and if you go in there, there's nothing in there. But you don't have to have a folder called assets. Your folder could be called anything. You might have a folder called images. You might have all sorts of other stuff, but they started you off. But I think the next thing to do is jump into the index.html. So in here, we've got some stuff already in there. Now, because this is a sort of pre-made thing and they want it to look kind of cool, they've got a few things in here which might be a little bit misleading. Well, not misleading, but you just don't need all this stuff in here now. So I'm going to remove some of it, but I'll tell you what it is before I do. So we've got this meta stuff. Now, this is saying I'm using a particular character set. Now, that might not mean a lot to you, but if you're using an English keyboard, it's going to be different from an English language or a standard left to right European language. It will use a particular character set. If you're using a completely different type of language, it will use a different character set. So perhaps Chinese, or perhaps a right to left language, like Arabic, might be a different character set. So that's just kind of helping the browser out. It's helping the browser being Chrome or Safari or something like that. So this isn't something that's seen, but it's sort of helping you out. And again, this is sort of doing something that's talking about compatibility, and you can see IE is mentioned there in Edge. So it's helping a compatibility thing. And again, this next thing is helping mobiles. So it's doing a scaling thing on mobile. Again, all these meta thing, anything that says meta is not actually viewed. So for now, I'm just going to get rid of it because I don't want it to be confusing, and this will work perfectly fine without it. Now here we're loading a CSS file, so we're loading our style. I'm going to get rid of that as well because we don't want any style just yet. I just want to concentrate on the HTML. That can be another day. And here we're loading our JavaScript file. So you can see here it's loading a script file. I'll get rid of that as well. So that's all gone now. So this is shrunk down. Here we've got some stuff, right? That's all good. And then down here we've got some more script and a button and some other stuff. And you might remember there's this button over here. Now this bit adds the button. So let's just get rid of it and see what happens. I just want to simplify this. So now this is a lot simpler. And I don't know if this auto saves or not. Maybe it does auto save. Let's have a look. Let's reload this page. Yeah, it's auto saves. It's actually changed before. I didn't even need to refresh it. So now we can see it looks a bit less fun. I mean, we've got a boring font. We've got none of this button here. None of the kind of linky things over here. But we've still got the main stuff in here. But I think this is much better because now we can actually talk about what this page is. So we've got all the essential stuff in here. I've not broken this web page. Let's talk through it. So this is what an HTML file might look like. So to start off with, I think we might make a new file to start talking about what's in here. So let's make a new file. Let's make webpage.html. Let's do that. So there's nothing in here. So first of all, let's write something. So you can see I've got these greater than and less than signs that I'm using here, and I've written the word or the characters HTML, and then below that it actually automatically did it for me, which is really handy. It's got /HTML. Now this is a tag, and HTML are full of tags, and it also uses a thing called nesting, and nesting is where you might put one thing inside another thing, a bit like Russian dolls. So when you write an HTML file, everything you write is inside HTML. The opening tag is less than HTML, greater than. Let's just call them brackets. And there's lots of types of brackets. These are one kind. So you've got the word HTML in brackets and /HTML in the other bracket. And inside here is your website. So I could write something here. I could write hello. Now this might work. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can go to it. So we need to go to /website.html. Man, it doesn't work. That's probably because I called it webpage.html. Let's just change what I wrote there. Webpage.html. Hello. So it works. So I called this webpage.html, and then I have to go to the URL, this lovely navy exuberant para.glitch.me/webpage.html. I've got the word hello. So actually, there's a lot of stuff you can put in an HTML file, but you don't need most of it. The thing about HTML is it's a load of markup, as we've described. It's a load of sort of content that you send to the browser, and the browser interprets it and shows it as a web page. Now, browsers are really, really good at interpreting the HTML in many ways. They're good at figuring out what it's probably supposed to look like, even if you've not put everything you should in there. And the really smart thing is, the way it's smart, is that you can make your web page really badly and it'll still work. You'll very rarely get a big error. It will just try and make its best stab at it. The only problem with that is that different browsers tend to show websites a bit differently. So when you're trying to be very precise, it can be a bit hard. that's a worry for another time. So this is kind of the most basic HTML web page, really. Let's have a look at almost what's missing here. So let's go back to the index of HTML. You see, the first thing it's put up here is this exclamation mark doc type HTML. Now this is a declaration saying this is an HTML document, and it's also saying it's an HTML5 document. So it's just a bit of extra info to tell the browser you are looking at an HTML document, and it's sort of the newest kind. It's the kind that enables all the newer bells and whistles to work. Now, you don't have to do this, but it's a helpful thing, and it helps the browser display it correctly. So we're going to put it in. So that's in there now, and you can see this page is now reloaded. It sort of reloaded it and took me back to the original one. So let's open a new tab so we can have our new and our old one up there. So let's go to page.html. There we go. So it's not made any changes putting this doc type in, but you're supposed to. And the other thing you might see in here is we've got this head thing. We're going to ignore the head for now. But down here we've got a thing called body. So let's talk about these, we've got these nested tags. Let's actually do some nesting. So let's write body, and it will make the close body for me. And we're going to shift that text into there. So now we're nesting. So we've got a body tag inside an HTML tag. And what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to put anything that is in content to be shown on your web page. So actually stuff that's on the page should always be inside the body tag. So between these two tags, and you always have an opening body tag and you always have a closing body tag. Now most tags always have an opening and a closing tags. Some don't, and we'll talk about one of them. But it's almost you have to close a tag at any rate. So this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag. Now some tags are self-closing. We'll show you, but this is now probably the simplest kind of web page you should ever have. The other one was slightly incorrect, but I was just demonstrating how things actually update anyway. So this again, it still works. It still says hello. Why don't we change it just to demonstrate that? Hello, I'm in the body. And let's refresh this. And we can see that. So that's great. Now there's one thing that's significantly different to this index one, the one that we made already, and it's got this head thing. So let's talk about the head. So things you don't see in a web page but may be necessary, you put in the head. So let's do that. Got opening head tag and closing head tag. Now the primary thing that isn't in the web page but you do see in the browser is the title. Now when you open a new page, so like if I drag this page out so you can see the actual page, you can see it's got the domain name up here. And if I hover over it, it's got the full domain name. But it's a bit of a weird title. You don't normally see at the top of a tab, HTTPS, blah, 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 blah. It's useful, but the reason it's doing that is because I haven't specified a title for the page. And that's what you do in the head. So it doesn't appear on the web page, but it is something that's visible. So let's put in title and call it a web page, because it is. And that will save. Let's refresh this. And now you can see that's changed to a web page. So that's where the title goes. So it's not on the web page, it's not in here, but it is visible. Let's put that back. So the head is stuff that isn't visible on the page but may be useful. And in here you can put a lot of other things. So and each of those things has to have a tag. So for instance, we've got the title thing there, but originally we also had things like meta tags. Remember, we deleted those meta tags, but it might say certain things. We had the CSS and JavaScript loaded in scripts tags. So you can load things in tags here. You can even include fonts and stuff in there. There's a lot we could do. We won't get into that now. I think that's another tutorial, but that's where all that goes. But the body down here is where the content goes. Let's add some more content. So we just chucked the word hello, I'm in the body down there. Which is absolutely fine. But there's a thing called Semantic HTML. What Semantic HTML means is you write your HTML in such a way that you describe each bit. So for instance, if I put P and then have a closing P tag, it's telling the browser this is a paragraph. And I can refresh that, and it actually did change it very slightly. And that's because automatically a browser puts a little bit of padding around a paragraph, which is completely customizable. But Semantic HTML is really good. It's telling the browser what things are. Like, what is the meaning of this bit of text? It's saying it's a paragraph, it's a bit of text. And for instance, you might have something that's a useful clicky thing, and you might label it as a button. So I could make a button here. So let's make a button and say a clicky button. Let's refresh this page, and I've got a button, and it's automatically made it look like a button. I can click on it, and it does some clicky stuff. It doesn't do anything yet, because I'm not told it to do anything. But this is Semantic HTML, so why is that better? It worked anyway. Why do I have to do this? Well, it really helps certain people. It's really good for accessibility, so people who maybe have to have a screen reader because of problems with their vision, or it may be even a search engine knowing what something is to sort of improve your page rankings or to improve your visibility for your site. So it's good for disability reasons, it's good for your own selfish reasons, and there's a bunch of other reasons as well, but writing your HTML properly is really, really useful. So this is now a basic HTML page that's kind of styled in a it's not styled yet. We haven't got a style sheet on there, but it's got it's got the style you should have on a web page. It's got your Semantic HTML. So this is kind of the basic of what a web page might look like. Let's go back to that index page, and you can see pretty much I've got the same thing. The only thing that's different here is we've got a link. Look, if I on here it says I'm your cool new web page, and let's have a look what that looks like. Made with glitch, and if I click on the word glitch, it links to something else, links to the glitch website. Let's go back. So this is the most essential thing in a website. Links to other things. The whole idea of hypertext is text pages that can link to other pages is what makes the internet. So you can see it's got this A thing and then a /A. Now this is your link. This is the opening tag and the closing tag. And then inside the middle is the word glitch. And we can see in this web page, glitch appears as a link. If let's zoom in. So it looks like a standard link, and that's because it's got this A tag around it. Right. And in here is a thing called a href. So it's a reference to the web page it's going to. So in this case, HTTPS is the full web page. It starts with HTTP something, HTTPS in this case, and then goes to glitch.com. Now I can put in here a link to anything. One, I put a link to my web page down here. So rather than put in all of this, let's delete that. Let's just go to webpage.html. Let's try and spell it right. HTML. So now we've got a link to our web page, and I'm going to say, let's change this text, say here's another web page. Okay, so this will automatically update. Here's another web page. Click on that, and I go to my other web page. Maybe we should just add one more thing. Let's talk about one more thing in here. We want a title in here, so let's put a title. So there's a thing called a heading in HTML. So we've got H1, and I'm going to put another web page. Again, spelling's good. Let's refresh this page. Now we've got a heading, and you see it's really big. So what's happened there? Well, in HTML, you've got this tag called H1. Now that is your primary heading. So on a website, you have a H1 tag almost always that's got the title of that web page. Now you can have another tag called an H2, which is maybe a subheading, a secondary heading. And you can have H3, H4, H5, H6. So you have layers of headings. Now, again, in the kind of world of Semantic HTML, this is telling the browser something. It's telling it this is the most important heading. That might really help a screen reader. So if someone's having their page read out to them, it's saying, it's able to access the H1 tag and read to that person what the title of this web page is. Equally, a search engine like Google can look for that and say, I want to maybe make that the most important thing I need to know about this web page. So this is your primary stuff in here. And I think what we should maybe do is link something back. So let's go, let's have a, let's make another tag. Let's say a href equals, and let's put slash in there, and then say go back home. Now, by putting slash in there, it basically creates a link that goes back to the first thing in the website. It goes back to the beginning, and that beginning, as I mentioned before, is this index.html. That is always where website loads when you go back to the what's called the root URL, just the slash on the end of your website. So let's just check that works. So we've got this. Let's click on here's another web page. That goes to my other web page, and now it says go back home, and it loads the first page. And on the URL, it's going to be, there's nothing after it, unlike the other page which has got webpage.html after it in the URL. So there's a really simple website. Now I think we should have one more thing. So maybe we should have an image. How are we going to do that? So we could put an image under this paragraph. Maybe we should put it on the home page. Let's put an image in there. So an image is another tag, img, image, that sort of makes sense. And image tags are self-closing. So what that means is you go slash and then close. It doesn't have a completely different tag. It just has this little slash at the end. Now to know what the image is, or where I get that image, you have one more tag, a source tag, which is just src equals, and then you've got your comments like this. Comments, apostrophes, commas, what are they called? Those things. So let's stick an image in here. So let's go to a website that's just full of images. Let's go to Unsplash. So Unsplash, I'm just using them because you can just find a photo and put it in there. So let's just find a photo. That's a good idea. So let's go to this. So wear your mask. So we can borrow this photo. Does this give me a link here? Let's have a look. Let's go to medium, small. I want a small one. Let's let me download it. We could do that. We could download it. I should probably say thanks to John Tyson. Thanks, John Tyson. I'll do it this way instead. So we've now downloaded that image. That's one way of doing it. We could link directly to it actually with Unsplash, but actually, let's do it this way. Let's go to my assets and let's chuck that image in there. So here we go. I'm uploading my assets. I'll drag something in here, and there it is. And let's just check what it's called. It's got a great big long confusing name. Can we change that name? Oh, it gives me the whole URL here as well. So this is the name, which is there. I'm going to copy that and go here and put, so image source equals, well, it's in assets slash, and then I've got to paste that name in. So hopefully this will now display my image. It doesn't. And there's a little broken link thing there, which means I've got something wrong. Either it's renamed that image or something's gone on. I think it may have renamed it. So let's see what's happened. Let's go back to assets, and it's saying it's at this long, strange URL. I wonder if Glitch does a strange thing where you have to access the images through that. Well, let's just try that way. This will work, but if I click on copy, it's going to copy that long, strange URL, and let's put it in that way instead. And there it is. So there we go. We've got big, lovely image where your mask. And I did enlarge this page. Let's put it back to the normal size. It's not that big, really. So I think with assets, that is actually automatically, we can see what it's doing, it's automatically uploading the image to this other URL, which is cdn.glitch.com. And the reason it's doing that is a CDN is another complicated thing we don't want to get into now, but it's a content delivery network. It's a way of making your images load really quickly anywhere in the globe. So it's doing a really smart thing uploading this. You just drag an image into assets, and it might not be an image, it might be a file of some other kind, like a PDF or whatever. And then you just need to copy that link and paste it in to your image tank, and it works fine. It does give it quite a weird URL, and there will be other ways of doing this as well. But now we're starting to build a web page. It's starting to come together here. Now, what we can talk about in the future is actually how you might then start playing around with the CSS and the JavaScript to start affecting how that page looks. But I think that's has to be put in another tutorial. This is going to go on for too long. But what I want to end with is saying that this isn't the only way of doing it. But I'm going to show you a few ways that help you create a web page and actually make it viewable on the internet. So one thing to press upon you is what we've done here now. If you go to Show, Preview Your App, which goes to this page, you can see we've got our own URL. I can give that URL to anyone now, and this web page is visible, and it's on the internet. And it's mine, and it's free, and that's quite amazing. I've just signed up for a Glitch account, and I've got this free thing. Now, the next thing you might want to do is you might want to put it at a domain name that you buy yourself, like me.com. You can't buy me.com. I think Apple already has, but you might get yourname.com. How do I make that work at yourname.com? Well, there's a good Medium article on exactly that, actually. So if you basically search on the internet for add a custom domain to your Glitch project, and I'll put a link up to it as well, it tells you how to do it. Now, Glitch lets you do this, and there's actually, I think you can even do it down here in the tools, custom domains. And if you bought a domain, you can add it in here and do it all. Now, I believe you need to do one thing, which is you've got to have some thanks. Now, this is kind of lovely in a way, but Glitch will do things for free for you, but in return, you just need to thank someone for helping or provide a bit of helping hand for someone else. There's a few ways of doing it, but it basically helps their community and it helps other people who are learning, which is it's a kind of cool thing. And then in return, they let you link it up. Now, after you've done a couple of little HTML tutorials, you'll already know stuff that other people want some help with, so you'll be able to do this. But this article takes you through it, and you can basically do it straight in the interface here. Now, where to go and learn more? Now, I'd really recommend w3schools.com. If you search for almost anything to do with the internet, so from HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you can see other languages up here, you'll often find w3schools.com comes up first, and they're brilliant for tutorials. And if you, I would, the home bit here has got a bit of an intro, but actually if you go to the introduction, this is kind of where the tutorial starts. It tells you about the internet. It lets you try it out yourself straight in the interface here. It's really good. So by going through a few things here, you'll very rapidly learn, HTMLers and sort of fly through that. If you want to learn more about CSS, again, there's great tutorials on CSS here. There's also some really good videos on YouTube. I'd really recommend Layout Land, which is Jen Simmons. Is an expert in CSS, and she's done some amazing tutorials on a YouTube channel called Layout Land. That's fantastic. Again, there's loads of good JavaScript stuff in here. I'm particularly a fan of Daniel Schiffman, who is a JavaScript expert, and particularly around creative coding with P5. So there's tons of tutorials there. And some of you may have tried P5. So P5, which is another system actually where you create a web page, is a really good way of this is not the website for P5. Let's try just p5js.org. So again, some of you may have tried this. This is a really interesting way of learning JavaScript. And if you've tried this, it's also worth pointing out that you would probably want to go to the editor, and you may think and feel that this P5 editor looks very, very similar to Glitch. You've got an editor here. I can even go into this mode where I see the web page on one side and have my code on the other side. P5 is very similar, right? I can, put things over here. I can make a circle appear over here, something like this. Again, code one side, see it on the other side. Why not use P5 and make my web page that way? And yeah, you absolutely can. If you're into P5 and you're doing animations, actually do it all through P5. If you open this little drawer on the side here, you can see your HTML file, your JavaScript file, and your style file, just like you do in Glitch. And then when I go to, as long as I've saved it, I'm logged in. You logged in, and then you save it. There it is, saved. Share. Go to present. I have a web page. I have a web page with my own unique URL. just like glitch. And again, this is something you could use to create a website. Why use glitch over this? Well, if you're just using P5, I would probably stick in this. I would stay in here. This is absolutely brilliant. I think if you're making a more complicated web page with multiple pages and it's less, let's say you're not using P5 at all, then go for glitch. What if you want to make P5 stuff in glitch? You can absolutely do that. And actually, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of P5 tutorials that use glitch as well. So they're very similar tools and great options. And one other thing I wanted to talk about was Codepen. So Codepen is another website out there, and again, it's something you can sign up to, and there's tons of examples up here. And I don't know what these are, but let's have a look. These are just things that are picked by Codepen on their front page. So there's a lovely animation, and over here I can see the HTML. It's lots of confetti. Look at that, loads of confetti in my HTML. My CSS, it's got some style, and it's got some JavaScript, which is making it do the fun stuff. So Codepen is actually, it really simplifies your HTML. You don't see the HTML tag, you just got the kind of interesting bits. But Codepen's a fantastic place you can sign up to. You can go and view many other people's work. It's a way of concentrating just on the interesting bit of code. But again, actually, when you make something in Codepen, let's find another one here. Look, you can share it and you can export it, and you actually can download the files or share it out there on the internet. So this is another great thing to try. So I hope that's given a bit of an insight. I'm going to link to these things as well, and ongoing, there's so much more you can learn, and the next things you'll want to learn after making some stuff in HTML is probably some CSS, and start styling it, start making it look how you want it to. And beyond that, maybe then you want to look at some JavaScript as well. But it's not hard, and the great thing about things like Glitch is they let you jump straight in. You're not downloading any tools. When you get to that stage, there are plenty of editors out there. You know, if you're there now, what do I use? I use a tool called VS Code, Visual Studio Code, which is free. It's a text editor. It just does some extra bits and bobs, makes your code pretty colours like this so you can see it, and some other stuff too. There are loads of code editors out there. VS Code's becoming really popular, and it's free and it's really easy. But I would stick to things like Glitch for now, and just make yourself a web page, get it out there and play with it and have fun. Okay, well, I hope this has been enjoyable. I hope you get somewhere. If you've got any questions, just get in touch and ask me, and enjoy.